photos out and the photos out, because you could, of course, go and spend days and see anything to do, but I'm just curious, just so you're not going down a rabbit hole of, spending too long playing the whole thing. How do you know when your features...
When it's done?
Yeah, we're done enough to kind of say...
Yeah, it's not a magic formula. We do a lot of testing. Everybody who works in the company is kind of a synth geek. And fortunately, most of them are younger and have better hearing than I have. There are... yeah, well, there was actually, I think it was the Prophet-12. There was one point early in development where apparently there was like 14K or 11K or something up there just shrieking. And everybody in the room's going, ah! And I'm going, what? What? It's just, there's nothing left up there for me. So it's good reason to always have some young kids that actually hear close to 20K, because I certainly can't. They're exactly the same. The switch body, if we tore this apart and you saw the circuit board, it would look just like a Prophet-5 circuit board.
Have you changed the potentiometers at all? I see the knobs look the same.
Yeah, that's all newly done. Yeah, different pots, different knobs, different switches. But these switches are, pretty much, they're probably made by a different company, but they're made to be exactly the same look and feel and so forth.
Does the Prophet-6 have the ability to be polychain?
Yes, actually, in fact, next week we're going to start shipping a module version of the Prophet-6. It's about this big, like this. It's just as high because of the space we needed inside, but it's basically exactly the same controls. So every switch, every knob is on the module, just no keyboard and costs a little bit less. And if you have a keyboard and a module, or two keyboards for that matter, you could polychain the two and get 12 voices, if you actually need that much. So, yes?
Can you talk about the differences between designing a synth like this and something like Tempest?
Oh, there's all kinds of differences there. We do have a Tempest up here too, so I won't do a demo on that. But I could talk a little bit about that, because that was probably the most painful product I've ever developed for a whole lot of reasons. As you know, we designed it with Roger Lynn, and he is obviously the undisputed king of drum machines, having invented the original ones, the Lynn drums and so forth. But he basically also invented hip-hop when he invented the MPC 60. So, he kind of knows what he's doing. So we had always talked together. We've been friends for many years about doing a project together. And at one point we finally decided, well, let's do a modern day drum machine. But it took a long time and many years and many false starts and a few near fist fights. But we're still friends. But we finally came up with the right formula that we both liked. I mean, we're both used to doing our own thing. So you can imagine getting two designers together who have their own way of doing things, and I have my way and he has his way, and so it was a little tricky. But the concept of the instrument is really cool. It's basically a analog drum machine, though there are some samples in there. And the concept is that once you start it playing, you can continuously manipulate the sound and the beat without ever stopping. And you can just go off in whatever direction you want and then come back to where you were, or you can keep going and you could be changing everything. And it's just so easy to use that way. Because you could program it on the pads, or you could program it, 808 style. It's just a great instrument. And because it's a real synth, I mean, you could actually play it. You could plug a keyboard into it and play it as a polysynth, because that's what it is. It's a 6-voice polyphonic synth. But, that's a whole nother hour long. But the point was, it took us a really long time. It was a huge project for us at the time, because again, we're a small company, and so it was painful, but it was worth it, and it's really cool.
Wasn't there a chick boom or a Lynn drum too?
A boom chick.
Boom chick.
That was one of the first ones, and we made the mistake of actually showing it to people and telling people about it before we built it. So that was probably the only time I've been guilty of vaporware. I mean, we did eventually build something, but that was just a mistake. For some reason, we thought it'd be a good idea to tell people we were working on something, and that's usually we talk to very few people when we design a product. We just do it ourselves. We don't have a marketing sales department telling us what we should be building. We just do what we want to do, and then we start shipping it. And you either like it or you don't. And that's why we could do things so quickly. I mean, we can turn around products as a small company very fast, from inception to shipping, and it's because we don't have anybody else to talk to. I mean, other companies, Yamaha's famous for it. You can just tell that they're committee built, because you look at it and wait, there's 3 ways to do the same thing, and that's because this guy wanted it this way and this guy wanted it that way, so they just put them both in. And there's just, I think it loses the conceptual, I don't know, it just doesn't work as well as when you get, because when you get a lot of input, then, if you ask 20 artists what they want, you're going to get 20 different answers, and then you kind of feel like you have to put them in if you ask them. But, it ends up confusing things, I think. And then along those lines, I'm actually pretty bad about knowing what other products do. If you ask me what's on a Korg XYZ or a Roland on one of their new toys or something, I don't know. To me, it just kind of clouds things, because then you start thinking, oh, they have that feature, we really should have that feature too. And I'd rather start from scratch and just, again, well, after you've been doing it for 40 years, it's easier, but it's just, distractions are not good. So,
Do you
sure.
ever work with artists that have used your synth on records to do sound designs? Like, is there very high-profile guys that have helped you with
For sound design,
patch design?
not super high profile. If they're really high profile, they probably don't have time to be making patches. So we wouldn't normally ask them either. So it's better to work with, some local synth heads and people we know who know their stuff. So.
Can we hear it a little bit more?
Sure. Where were we last time? Oh, we were doing effects? No, we did distortion, did drums. Let's see. Yeah, that's what we were doing. Let's see. Is it this one? So it's just fun. I mean. Let's see, what else could we do? So this is our spring reverb model, and one of the things I always like to do to show you how good our models are is it's funny, we didn't tell anybody that's in there. It's not in the manual, so. Well, if you drop it, it doesn't work as well. It's specifically this axis, because we didn't want it happening when not expected. But a few people have found it, but not very many, so that's a secret.
Is that an accelerometer that you use to do that?
No, it's a spring.
A real spring?
A real spring. Actually, with the accelerometer in there, we've also talked about doing a range stick mode where you can kind of... But better things to do with our time, probably.
When you play it, does that affect it at all if you hit it and play it at the same time?
Well, yeah. It just kind of gets mixed in like a real reverb would if you kicked your amplifier in the old days. Let's see. I love delays.
Is there a tap tempo on there?
A what?
Do you have a tap tempo or do you?
There is a tap tempo button. This guide is blinking right here. Yeah. And I should mention obvious stuff. The clock will synchronize to MIDI clock. The LFO will clock to that. So you can synchronize the arpeggiator or the sequencer or the delays or the LFO to an external clock or to themselves.
On the Prophet-12, with the voice lights that are on the side, when you do a chord and all the lights light up,
Yeah.
and then you let off on maybe one note, and then you put another note down, it continues on.
Yeah.
It doesn't fill in the light before. Is there a reason why? The lights just continue on. They don't actually fill in the light that dead end. They'll go through the whole cycle before it comes back.
Yeah, we use circular voices, so it always plays the next voice. But that's usually because if you have release happening, you don't want to cut off the release on the note you were playing, even if it's the same note. So.
So when you were deciding the features to go into the Prophet-6, when you were cutting, ideas that just wouldn't fit on the panel or whatever, what was the hardest one to cut?
Oh, I don't know if I have an answer for that, really. I don't remember. This one was maybe a little easier because we were starting with a Prophet-5 concept, so we knew we had two oscillators and a filter, and we knew we had polymod and an LFO. So, a lot of it was kind of obvious from that point of view. And then what we added was fairly obvious: high-pass filters, the sequencer arpeggiator, aftertouch, and things like that. The distortion. I'm trying to think, part of it with the digital effects, of course, we could have added dozens more, but we decided to keep that short. I don't know if I could remember any specifics in that.
Do you have a favorite?
Favorite what?
Synth that you made?
Oh, it's like saying, who's your favorite child?
One of them.
That's too hard. I mean, I tend to like the most recent one I've done, so I like, I used to like the Prophet-12 a whole lot, but now I like this a whole lot. But then like today, an artist came in and, I was showing them the Prophet-12, and I just, when I go back to it, it's just like, wow, this thing's really cool too. They're different. And then, you kind of, the Prophet-5, of course, was the first one, so there's, got to be a special place in your heart for that. But it's just, I would get in trouble, I think, if I tried to pick favorites.
Can you talk about the polymod a little bit?
Sure. Polymods, that was one of the most unique things about the Prophet-5. I mean, besides the fact that it was the first polyphonic programmable synth. What polymod does is it allows you to have individual modulation on each voice. So an LFO goes to all of the voices, but a polymod is individual per voice. And what's cool about that is you can do a lot of really crazy things really quickly and easily. And again, it was a new concept back then, just the idea of, well, wait a minute, because it's just hard to explain. Right now it's kind of makes more sense because everybody's used to polyphonic synths. So, well, of course you could do that per voice. And especially with digital synths, because they could do everything, anything you want, because it's all just calculations, and you get however many voices they can calculate in enough time to output. But yeah, it's a pretty magical area, I think, and it's just really cool. Do you want to come up and play it a little bit?
Sure.
So since I'm not a really good player, but Jason back here happens to be a real good player. This is Jason Lindner, and he's a, how do you want to be described, a jazz keyboard player?
An eclectic musician.
Okay. Well, what he's going to do is just start turning knobs, and I know something will happen, but it'll be interesting. Yeah, how you doing?
Oh, good. Sorry.
Does it still work? Yeah. Okay. Go for it. Where do you want to start?
I don't know. I've played this on a few gigs already.
I think it's got factory sounds.
Slop works too.
So you're right in the whoa, that's loud. You're right in the shot.
Oh.
Sweet.
No, that didn't work out.
Where's the drop, man?
If I change the scale while it's on that, will it change the alternates?
I think,
On that?
yeah. Ah, you killed it. Thanks. But you didn't actually play anything.
I didn't actually play anything. I just want to say that I play a lot of Dave Smith's instruments, and they are all instruments, and it's very unlike. It's just how you open the lecture, saying you make things that are actually instruments, and you know how they, so you can really find your own voice on them and not. It's very unlike software. It's it's very unlike sample-based instruments. It's just another world, and it's been really, really fun. You gonna play something?
Yeah, play some music.
All right. What's that?
Yeah.
No, we'll
Woo.
take up any more time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Well, that was pretty cool. You notice none of that was anything remotely connected to a preset. He started with a preset that lasted about a half second, and after that, it was just continual change. And that's the whole idea. It's a musical instrument. You can't do that on a Rompler. You can't do that on a lot of things. I always liken it to a guitar. You know, a guitar player will not only decide if they want a Telecaster or a Les Paul or a Stratocaster, but they'll decide which particular one built in which year, in which factory, what color. I mean, because they'll pick them up and play it, and the one that they feel is right for them is the one that they'll buy. And we can't totally do that, but with analog, you sort of are doing it, because every single voice in every single instrument is always, by definition, just a tiny bit different. We spend a lot of our development time trying to make each voice as identical as possible, because if they're too far apart, then it's not going to work. But even if they're really, really close, there's always just something that's a little different, because it's a completely different circuit. And that's, I think, what I mentioned earlier about why they fit in a mix and why there's this great sound that they have, is just because they're different. They can't be the same. It's impossible. How much longer? I don't know what our time frame is for this thing.
We're going until you're done.
Okay, well, I'm going until you guys are done. So if you get tired, we could all leave and go drinking, or we can keep going for a while.
That's a good question. When you finish building a synth like this and you put it out to market, what do you do? What do you do next? How do you know what to build next, or are you just not even focused on that right now?
Oh, we're always focused on it, and we have lots of ideas. We have something coming out in a couple months that'll really surprise people. Ideas are not a problem. It's selecting ideas, and we're always talking about the next thing, even if we're deep in, like right now, we're deep in a new product that's almost done, that we'll probably be able to ship early next year, but we'll announce it at the NAMM show. So even though we're deep into that, finishing it up, we've been talking for months about 2 or 3 or 4 other possible products, and we're kind of almost committed to some of them. But then what happens often is we'll just be going down this path, and somebody will come up with an idea, and we'll think about it a little bit, and we'll just take a left turn, and we'll just say, yeah, let's do that one. And in fact, the product we're doing now came, well, I won't tell you how the idea came about because that would give it away, but it was just something that just sort of happened, and I came back and said, hey, what if we do this? And everybody goes, yeah, let's do that. And we just do it again. We still have a long-term project that we're working on, but we might do this other thing in between that we just sort of decided for different reasons, and it'd be really fun to talk about it all, but I can't. But we're always talking about it, so it's not like we finish this and start that. There's everything always overlaps.
Are you ever going to make any guitar pedals?
We talk about making effects. It's funny because we always talk about them and we just never get around to doing them. We have the technology, of course, and people keep saying, well, just take the distortion and the compressor out of the Tempest and put it in a box. We want that. Or take this. Somebody was just telling me, who was it? Passion Pit came to visit a couple weeks ago and they played. And they said, just take the effects unit out of here. People want just that and put it in a box. And of course, it'd be real easy to do. But we're a small company. We don't have the bandwidth to just keep spitting out products. And even though the design aspect, I mean, it's done. I mean, the thing already works. So, but it takes a long time to design a box and get it right and get the graphics and write manuals, get production started. I mean, it's just the whole process is it's just a long process. So we can't just do it on a whim. But someday we'll do effects.
Are you continually building kind of your back catalog of available gear right now, or do you guys like just do a ton of Prophet-6s and then you're on to the next thing?
No. In fact, that's one reason that we've been growing. I think we've grown almost every year in the last 10 years, maybe except one. What most companies do, and it goes back to the M1 thing, is they come out with this year's M1, and a year later they blow them out and come out with next year's M1, and the previous year's M1 is gone. What we try to do is each instrument is its own, like I've been saying, it's its own instrument. So when we came out with the Prophet-12, we didn't stop making Prophet-8s because a lot of people still like the Prophet-8s, and it's still selling well after 8 years we've been shipping that. The Prophet-6 is not putting the Prophet-12 out of business. So when we come out with a new product, it gets added to our product line. It doesn't replace. And that kind of gives you a natural growth. That having been said, just recently we've decided to slow down on a couple of our older products that have been out for a while that have slowed down in sales. So at some point, we kind of take them out of the mix. But we're still selling the Evolver desktop, and we started shipping that in 2002 when I was the only person in the company. Actually, for the first 5 years, I was the only person in the company. I once swore that I would never have employees again. But at one point, I kind of decided that employees were probably a cool idea. And now we're up to 12. Huge company.
Does the Prophet-6 have a line-in or any method wherein I can manipulate external sounds?
You're talking about an audio input?
Yeah.
No, it's funny. A lot of people ask for that, but on a polyphonic synthesizer, it doesn't really make sense. It makes a lot of sense on a monophonic instrument, and we do have audio inputs on a lot of our our monophonic synths because it's one voice. So when the audio comes in, it gets processed by that one voice and mixed, and it makes sense. When you have 6 voices, having an audio input it's a little vague. Like you don't want to send the same audio necessarily to all 6 voices when you're playing polyphonically. I suppose it might work if you have if you're in unison mode, whether it's monophonic, but it's just not really the emphasis of the instrument. That's more for monophonic synths.
But if I'm using it, can I use the effects and other?
No. No. Again, it's a polyphonic synth. It's not really made. The effects are for this instrument. It's not made for processing external signals. So. Maybe that's one of the features we should have done and didn't do. What?
So the Tempest has a high-pass filter that's 4-pole, right?
No, the high-pass is only 2-pole.
Oh, on the Tempest it's 4, right?
No, that's only 2-pole also. Yeah. Yeah. We generally go 4-pole for the low passes and 2 poles for the high pass. It's a cost thing. It costs twice as much to make 4 poles as it does to make 2. And if you have to do it 6 times, then it's 6 times 2. It's just one of those things. And it actually for high passes, it's not quite as critical to have the sharp slope, so we get away with it. So unison mode is actually kind of cool. Typically, you just make it one voice. But what's also fun is you could do a chord hold thing if you just, when you turn it on, it'll latch the notes that you're playing, so that's kind of fun. Quick way to make a lot of noise. There's a lot of features in here that I haven't really covered. So.
What button is that?
What?
The button you just pressed.
That was a unison button. So unison, you could have, the way we set it up when you were in unison, that means monophonic. So you can only play one note at a time, and then you could decide how many voices get played. So you could play all 6 voices, or you could play just a single voice, or you could do the chord hold thing like I was just doing. So if I, let's see, if I make it 6 voices, it's really fat. And who was it? Jason, you were just asking about the slop control. Well, I talked about it earlier. That comes in real handy when you're doing unison stuff, because you can just turn it. So when you're in unison mode, the slop can be actually kind of handy to just detune the sound and make it that much bigger.
Is the slop kind of does it kind of randomize the?
Yeah, it's not a static detuning. So, some unison modes will just detune everything, like turning a detune knob. What it's actually doing is gradually, very slowly, randomly changing the tuning like an old VCO would, just by its very nature. So it's each voice, each oscillator, there's 12 oscillators because there's 2 oscillators per voice and 6 voices. So each of the 12 oscillators will start changing differently at a different rate, at a different amount, and a different frequency. And then the more you turn it up, they all just do that more. So it's gradually varying over time, not just a fixed detuning. And that's why it's that much thicker. Other questions?
So part of the rise of analog theater, I think, has to do with the lowering cost. It's easier to get into for most people. Is that largely a function of the parts that you're getting, that they can be manufactured more efficiently, or are there design issues that make it a lot simpler to produce a synth?
Well, compared to the old days, there's a number of differences. Technology is generally cheaper now. Building things in China is definitely a lot cheaper. So that contributes, because a lot of these small things are built over there. And it depends on what you put in. A lot of the simple monophonic synths don't have a whole lot of features. So the fewer features, the less it costs. And hardly anybody is building polyphonic analog synths where, like I said earlier, you had the multiplier. If you have 6 voices, you have 6 times the circuitry. So, the cost just adds up. So, this is not a cheap instrument. It's $2,800 street price. And you can get small monophonic, non-programmable synths for probably $500, maybe less, maybe more. But a lot of them are really simple. So it's, to no small degree, it's you get what you pay for. It costs a lot more to do this. Of course, we're built in San Francisco, which is not building in China. So, everything scales to a certain point. But it is, technology, the stuff that, there's some really awesome technology going on in here that, I won't go into detail because it probably gets boring after a while. But, there's over 100 control voltages flying around inside here because it's a true voltage-controlled system. And they're all running at audio rates. And, it's a real system, but we can do that now using high-speed processors and special circuits that just weren't available 30 years ago. So we could do everything, a better job of what we did back then for less money, design-wise. So. Okay.
You mentioned you were by yourself for a long time, working by yourself, and now you have 12 employees. Can you talk about your team a little bit? What do you have working for you? Is it mostly people working on the design aspect, or what's your?
Actually, a large part of the company is just customer and technical support. I'm a big fan of doing that, so if you send us an email, somebody will actually answer it quickly. I know that concept is very strange for most companies. I've never understood it. Customer service is so easy. All you have to do is answer emails and talk to people and fix their problems. I mean, nothing's perfect. I think our stuff's pretty reliable, but, stuff breaks once in a while. And we have a lot of people on tour, where they're throwing these things in the boxes and shipping them every day. And, a lot of people tell me, God, this stuff works great. They never have a problem with it, but once in a while, things break. Shit happens. So when it does, you fix it. You take care of it. And that's all you have to do. And so I'm a big fan of that. And so we have I think 4 or 5 people that are just for that. But everybody does everything too. I mean, they also help test products when we're building new things. Everybody gets involved with a lot of things. So we have I think 3 people doing software, 1 guy doing hardware, another guy doing kind of mechanical and UI design, and 1 person doing sales and marketing. And so it's it's a small company, but everybody overlaps a lot.
How many decision makers when it comes to deciding what the next product's going to be?
Well, I like to think it's somewhat democratic, but if it gets to the point of somebody having to make the call, well, you can guess who that is. But we're pretty good about it. We usually come to consensus, not always. Every once in a while, somebody will just insist that it has to be a certain way, but it's not going to be. But in general, we all tend to say, yeah, let's build this, and a lot of times it's based on what we think is going to be the most fun. I mean, there's no point of doing something just to make money. We have some ideas for some products where we can make a lot of money, but it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right, so we won't do it. We just want to do something that's fun, that people will surprise people, and hopefully get them interested in looking into it and buying it. So. Like a spring, well, that was just one of those random things. I said, hey, we can do this, let's do that. So we just put the hardware in, and then later on, when we had time, we said, well, let's see if we could implement it, and we did, and it was kind of cool. But it seemed sort of silly to make a big deal of it, so we just kind of didn't tell anybody.
They're all going to know now.
Yeah, well, maybe, I don't know. I've shown it in a few times in talks, and it's still not general knowledge, I don't think. Yeah, occasionally, and we could. Now that we have digital effects, it wouldn't be that hard. Actually, we seriously at one point talked about doing a hybrid analog-digital vocoder, where the analyzing side is digital, but the playback side is analog, which would have been really cool because that's never been done before. But I don't know, never got around to it. But again, ideas are, got a ton of them. But. Oh, we always build well, we go directly to the real thing. We lay out the circuit boards. We go for it. We don't. Sometimes we'll build a little part of it, depending on what the product is, if we have to try something out. But in general, these days, especially since everything is surface mount, and tiny, it's not real easy to breadboard things. So we usually have enough confidence in what we're doing that we can just go straight to the real thing. So we build prototypes. We'll usually build a very first version and then try it out, and then we'll build a second version that's kind of a beta version, and it's usually really, really close, and only minor changes from that to final production. But software is a huge part of all these instruments, and that's always the last thing that gets done. So we could usually get the hardware done sooner, but software just takes a lot of time. And these things all have lots of processors in them, and it's funny to talk about that when you're talking about an analog synth. What do you mean processors? But the Prophet-5 had a processor. That's probably the first musical instrument with a microprocessor in it. So it's been that way since the beginning, and it's necessary. It's just that they do more now and do a better job of it at a better price point. No, we use what's called a contract manufacturer, so it means it's another company. They're in San Francisco. Well, actually, they're a quarter mile from San Francisco. They're in Brisbane. I lied. But it's a different company, so they have all the equipment that you need, which is big and expensive these days, and they have the people, and they do it for us. Because Sequential Circuits, we had our own factory, and we had 170 people to build these things, and I'll never do that again. So this way we kind of get the best of both worlds. They're here so we can go visit, check things out when they're starting to build new products, make sure everything's done correctly, and we don't have to get in a plane to China when we get a container full of defective equipment or something. So it's much more immediate. But it's a regular production line. They continually build X amount per month depending on the product, and we try to always have stock of every product so we can ship to order as orders come in. So it's not built to order. We always have product around.
Probably ask a dozen more questions, but I won't.
Yes.
So, from running a company on your own to having employees, what changed for you as a business owner?
Well, actually, it's not quite as much as you would think. I mean, obviously, when it was me, I had to do sales and marketing and, service and fix things, and, I did it all, so, because there's nobody else to do it. So, then I hired one guy to help me out, and he took over a lot of it, and then it became a pecking order thing. Every time we hired a new person, then they'd get dumped on whatever the last person didn't want to do. And we have a tradition, the last person hired is always the one who has to drive the van down to NAMM every year. So, and we have a new guy this year who's doing that. But it's, what I learned this time around from doing it myself is how to be very efficient in everything, because you have to be. So I'm not much of a polisher, make sure everything's completely, absolutely perfect, which fortunately doesn't matter on a synthesizer, because sometimes the best sounds come from things that don't quite work right or don't quite do what they were supposed to, but it happens to sound cool. So that helps out. But an example would be when I'm actually designing something, I'll say, oh, you know what, if I design this part in, I could save $5, but it's going to take me 2 days to do it. No, I'm not going to do that. It'll cost $5 more. But on the opposite side, I can say, oh, I could have this really cool feature and only take 10 minutes and cost 10 cents. Then, oh, I will do that. So now that I have more people involved, we kind of still run things the same way. There's very little structure in the company. We don't have an HR department. We don't even have a vacation schedule. Everything is done very loosely because I don't want to manage like that. And fortunately, I have a really good team, so I don't have to. And it's worked out really well because everybody knows what they have to do, and the bottom line is we get the products done and get them out and they sound great and business is great, so I don't really have to do all that. If I had to, that would be a problem and might change things.
Do you feel like you're maybe less connected in the process of building the product when you have a team, because everything's kind of like divide and conquer?
No, not at all. Like I said earlier, everybody overlaps, and once a week we get together and the whole company sits in a room and we go over this and that and status of projects and this and that. And at some point we start blue skying new products and or repeat on what we talked about the week before and take it a step further. And it's collaborative. I mean, everybody can contribute no matter what their job title is. If we had job titles, I don't know if we have job titles, but it's a great. The environment is awesome and it works, and I'm very lucky that it does.
I think we're good, man.
Oh, one more question. How about we'll get.
Is there a discount if I buy that model?
That's the best question of the night.
Not this particular one. This is mine. This is serial number 1. This is going nowhere. So, but we could do discounts. Yeah, maybe we should do
Anybody interested in that?
just let maybe through you. Yeah, sure.
Find your emails.
Yeah.
Your Pyramind email.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Pyramind. Well, yeah, I mean, we could probably talk all night.
Yes.
Eventually, it sounds like he's going to get home or to the bar or both.
Food would be good.
Food, right? So there's plenty of options around here. Let's give Dave another round of applause.
Thank you.
Pyramind is the premier center for training in music and audio production. Set in the heart of San Francisco, Pyramind is surrounded by some of the biggest and best innovators on the planet. Not only are we a cutting-edge production school, we're also an award-winning music and audio production company. Learn from the team that's delivering award-winning content to the world's largest companies, as well as current artists who play the biggest stages around the globe. Our community events put you in touch with the vibrant local music scene, as well as touring DJs and producers, workshops, internships, and guest lecturers. Because we know the more involved you are, the further you'll go. You'll also be steeped in a vibrant community of like-minded creatives. Learn and collaborate with fellow students from around the world and create a long-term professional network that you'll lean on throughout your career. We've taken great care to make our programs about you. Choose from powerful career-driven programs to genre-specific ones. Start small and get your feet wet, or build a custom program tailored towards your personal needs. If you can't make it to San Francisco, you can enroll in our acclaimed online classes. 24/7 access to high-quality video training modules, challenging projects, and live interactions and project feedback with your instructors. Experience what Pyramind can do for you. Tell us where you want to go in your career. We can help you get there.